People choose to fly into DCA or even BWI. That's a whole nother city. So a couple of years ago, more than a couple of years ago, when I was back in my backsliding days, you know, the time when holidays don't mean time with family because you can't afford to see family. Holiday means you got a 3-4 day window to make bad decisions. That's really all holidays meant to me at the time. My mother was pleading with me to come home for Christmas. And I knew I couldn't afford to go home for Christmas, but it was weighing on me. And I said, you know, what would be better than just showing up, popping up, and surprising my mom in DC on Christmas Day? So I decided to look up plane tickets, and the only plane ticket I could afford last minute went into Dulles. Now, normally I flew into BWI, but you know what? I got to come into Dulles. You got to do what you got to do. So I called my mom on the way to the airport. She had no idea that I was coming. I called her on the way to the airport and I said, hey, Mom, how you doing? She said, I'm good. She'll wish you were here. And I was like, you know what? I'm on my way. She's like, what do you mean? What do you mean? I said, I'm on my way. I'm going to the airport. I will be there shortly. She said, oh, what time you getting in? And what terminal? And I was like, oh, well, actually, I'm not flying into BWI. I'm actually flying into Dulles. And there was a long pause on the phone. And I heard, well, we ain't gonna be able to do that, baby. She had begged for me to come home for Christmas. She begged for me to come home for Christmas because she wanted her family together. But even then, she was unwilling to pick me up at Dulles International Airport. Now, I was reminded of that story when I saw this story that House Republicans have proposed renaming Washington Dulles International Airport to Donald J. Trump International Airport in honor of the former president. The bill was filed Friday by Representative Guy Reschenthaler with 6 Republican co-sponsors, Andrew Ogles and Chuck Fleischman of Tennessee, Michael Waltz of Florida, Paul Gosar of Arizona, because there's no bad bill that he won't sign on to, Barry Moore of Alabama, and Troy Nehls of Texas. As opposed to focusing on, Ukraine aid, managing the Israeli crisis in Gaza, inflation, infrastructure, immigration, whatever this was supposed to mean.
If your constitutional rights have been violated, we will defend you. If you have illegal aliens invading your home, we will deport you.
Instead of any of those things, they decided to spend their time drawing up a bill to rename Dulles Airport. I guess they really took this to heart.
I want my Republican colleagues to give me one thing, that I can go campaign on and say we did.
Now, that would be one, except of course, it ain't happening. Even if the measure did pass the House, it would have to make it through the Democratic-controlled Senate and get the signature of President Biden.
This guy doesn't know what the hell he's doing. He doesn't know what he's saying. He doesn't know who to speak to. He's lost. He's a lost soul. Our president is a lost soul. It's pathetic.
Not too lost to throw that bill in the trash and then throw that trash can in the trash and then throw that trash can in the dumpster and then bulldoze that dumpster. However, I'm here to stand in the way of all that noise, kill that noise. Not only should Dulles be renamed for Donald Trump, it's the only logical name to adorn the airport simultaneously named amongst the top 5 most expensive airports in the nation and the worst 10 airports in the world. Did I mention it was also named one of the ugliest airports in the world? It's been so bad for so long, I even addressed it back when I hosted the news. So let's see, we got bad service, we got overpriced. I mean, sounds like a tagline to every Trump business I've ever seen. And now just a sprinkle of unsightly on top of it. This is a match made in Mar-a-Lago. The location for Dulles, by the way, was chosen by President Dwight Eisenhower, a Republican, and the airport itself dedicated by President John F. Kennedy, a Democrat, a few years later. And what better way to memorialize a man who took over the Republican Party after being a Democrat for most of his life? I mean, that location can be best described as Africa, landing over 25 miles away from DC, making it so inconvenient to get to, people choose to fly into DCA or even BWI, as in Baltimore, Washington International. which is in Baltimore. That's a whole nother city. When you got people ready to fly into a whole nother city, well, that would be like the choice mainstream Republicans find themselves in today with Trump, right? Now, part of the annoyance of Dulles stems from the shuttles you have to take. Get to take from the gate when your plane lands over to the main terminal where the baggage is picked up, which means once you've waited for your plane to actually arrive, then deplane, then clean the plane, then load, then take off, then land, then deplane. Now you got to wait for a small shuttle to get your bags. Oh, and you're probably thinking the large subway type shuttles some airports have for convenience. No. Think like an overcrowded commuter bus filled with people that are late to work and were told if they come late one more time, that was going to be it. That's the energy in those shuttles, and that's the size of those shuttles that can only fit a handful of people at a time. So even when you didn't fly Southwest, you still gonna have to throw them bows. It's tedious, yet somehow less tedious than the daily blatherings from Trump on any one of his 91 cases that needs to be sorted out during election season. Dulles boasts the most international traffic of any airport in the mid-Atlantic region outside of New York. Just how Trump still brags about his business acumen despite being unable to do business in New York. You would think a major airport of this size in our nation's capital would never close shops at 9 p.m. when servicing international flights or have 2+ hour wait times in customs and immigration. What will people think of us? Probably exactly what they thought of us during every international trip I've taken after 2016. You elected who? I remember once, and by that I mean the very last time I flew into Dulles. The flight was like half the price. I was in the immigration line, and the couple in front of me was arguing. Turns out they had spent the entire flight from London fighting about whether they were going to stay together or break up. Apparently the man wanted to stay together, but the woman was all, change your heart. However, when the plane landed, his phone was just flooded with messages. I don't know if he was asleep or he was in the bathroom, but either way, you can't be caught lacking when you live in dirty. Anyway, he must have got messages from all of Northwest DC because she was not happy. And she picked this moment to leave for good, right in the Dulles immigration line. Now, if we're not going to name this place after Trump, I have no idea what we're doing. Do it for Ivana, and then open up like a Marla Maples lounge if you want to do dirt. Now, there is another possibility. Did you know there was an all-black town called Willard, Virginia, that was destroyed to build what is now Dulles International Airport? Back in the late 1950s, notices were sent to the residents claiming the land was condemned to free up space for the airport. And the town itself, by the way, was named after a rich white landowner, Joseph Edward Willard, whose family actually received reparations from the federal government for the slaves they owned back in the 1860s. So another option would be to honor the loss of those whose lives were turned upside down to even create a Dulles airport. Or you could name it after the man who built his career on the backs of swindling the little man. Actually, that's the best case for Donald Trump International of all.